Yeah, well, I wrote a book called The Third Plate, and it was researched and written for over the course of 10 or 11 years. And I never really understood the through line of the entire book till I got to the end, which was about looking at how did these peasant farmers who were eking out what the land could provide, how did they enter into this negotiation and produce stunningly delicious and nutritious food out of a landscape that would just eke out ingredients and calories. And the answer was that they were forced into dealing with food waste in very creative ways. And they were forced into listening to what the land had required them to grow. Look, the Japanese food culture is embedded in rice. It's a rice culture, as UK Western culture is embedded in wheat, and as Southern sphere is a corn culture. But Asia is a rice culture, and Japan especially. In order to grow rice successfully without disease and with better yields and better nutrition and better flavor, you had to grow buckwheat as a rotation crop. It's one of the great rotation crops to break up disease cycles. Now, farmers all know that around the world. That isn't a secret. It isn't a Japanese secret. In America, buckwheat is grown on organic farms, often before rice or corn, but that buckwheat is thrown into dog food for the most part, or plowed back into the ground. In Japan, buckwheat became soba noodles. So that became part and parcel with what it means to be Japanese. In other words, it became part and parcel with eating rice. That you couldn't eat your rice without having soba. And that, I think, is a delicious example of what's possible in all of this waste discussion, is that we incorporate the nose-to-tail philosophy of eating the whole farm in ways that are creative and ultimately more productive for the environment. But that example of buckwheat, soba noodles, and rice, there's an analog for that in every culture. And what I've learned through the course of my career is that the best food, literally the most delicious, if you can measure deliciousness, I think you can, and chefs curate deliciousness every day, so there's a way to rank it. But the most delicious flavors come from farms and farmland that is the most ecologically diverse and has a kind of blueprint for diversity and for rotation on the farm that ends up soaking up any waste into agricultural fuel for the next generation of plants and animals. That's the cycle of life, really, and what we're mimicking in the best agriculture systems is the best natural biological systems. It seems to me that, you know, the most resilient, provocative, and again I would argue the most delicious cuisines and menus have to take into account the entirety of the farm. We talk about nose-to-tail eating of an animal because, you know, it's less waste, more respectful of the animal, less waste. We rarely talk about the nose-to-tail of an entire ecosystem or farm landscape. And when we talk about the farm-to-tail of a landscape, we're really talking about what is the landscape telling you it needs to grow, and what do we as eaters then incorporate into our diets to respond to that landscape's calling. Is it about standardization, or is it about really differentiation on a local and regional level? I think that's exactly right. That what we're talking about is regionalizing this issue to the extent that you know, we think about our daily food culture in ways that intrinsically soak up waste and become part of the deliciousness experience of eating. And that's not about dictating less food waste or eating, you know, damaged fruits and vegetables. It's really about incorporating these ideas into the everyday diets, which is what every cuisine has done since the beginning of time. Whether those opportunities are driven by ethics and morals, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. It's driven by I think mostly the economics of not wasting what otherwise could be profitable. And that's a very inspiring sort of way to look at this. I tend to be I tend to be like really liberal about these things and excited about ideas. But when it comes to the economics, the fact that it works and that it jives so well with this, and the fact that the waste food movement is so exciting because it doesn't ask you to give up anything. It asks you to be greedy, actually. What movement today, in today's world, I think of the environmental world, what movement asks you to be greedy? They all ask you to give up something for the sake of a better thing. Actually, the waste food movement asks you to be greedy, but just greedy for the right things.